There is a lot to talk about this week on this special Valentine's Day version of the Flame Trench. There are layoffs, Wait, I'm all alone? On Valentine's Day? Alright, just roll the intro.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside SP'd off. Bring in SP'd off. It's orange!
Orange 25! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Décollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If the methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You read? We don't need any more of these.
Am I actually alone here? Alright, I'm not actually alone here. I am D-Wise here with the Flame Trench. But with me today, let's start off. Of course, we also have Sawyer.
Hi, Dee. How's it going? It is, it's Valentine's Day, and there we go. I guess you're still alone. Sorry.
I'm still alone. Okay.
That's all right. Don't worry. I'm alone
There
with my
we
dark
go.
thoughts apparently because it was dark. Oh, there we go. I'm here. I'm also alone on Valentine's Day, but now I have all of you here, so I love it, and this is gonna be a great Flame Trench.
And it is not just us. You know him, you love him. We have EJ here.
Oh, hey. I don't know how I got on this flame trench, but hey, it's good to have friends, good to have company. How are you, D?
Doing pretty well. Felt a little bit left out to dry just 2 minutes ago, but we're all here now. And
yeah.
of course, in the background, pushing the buttons and pulling all the levers is Kevin Michael Reed. With that, why don't we just start and jump into our first topic, right?
Topic away.
Sounds like a good idea.
All right, here, I got this.
All you, EJ.
I'll take the first one. I don't know if you guys saw this thing behind me here, right? The thing that I got going on behind me. Give me that full screen. There we go. See this thing right here? So Stoke Aerospace actually teased this the other day. I actually gave it a name. This is the Andromeda 2 engine. The Andromeda 2 engine is what this thing is behind me. It's actually not a heat shield. That's an upper stage engine for their Nova rocket. All right. Stoke has done a Mark II version of their Andromeda engine that they famously tested on a hopper in 2023, which I was about to say that was 2 years ago, but I don't like saying it like that. So, it was in 2023, which was, that was recent, right? That was recent. It's fine. But they showed us some new pictures here. I know what people are going to say. Like, what do you mean? That looks like a heat shield. No. That is a single rocket engine. Stoke Aerospace is looking to pioneer reusable second stages in a slightly different way than, other competitors, the belly flop thing. We all about that. So this thing right here is actually one rocket engine with multi-nozzles all the way around. So in a similar way that like an RD-170, a Russian RD-170 would have one power pack and 4 nozzles, this has one power pack, and I think they cut it down to 16 nozzles. I'd have to go look. But they also changed the shape to make it more heat shield shaped. And the idea is that Stoke is going to, with this Andromeda 2 engine, they are boasting that they have an engine that does not need to be inspected. It can just land. You can launch it again. You can fly it as many times. 24 nozzles. Thank you very much, guys. They did change it. I know what it was on Andromeda 1, but they changed it when they had Andromeda 2. So they have this brand new engine that they claim that is going to be like inspection list. You can just reuse it over and over and over again, no problem. They also are switching their Nova rocket to a hot staging style here. So the first stage is actually going to be basically on this diameter right here. I'm going to weatherman it. Right here is where the outside of the first stage is going to be. And the nozzles are actually going to be pointing out the sides of the first stage. And in a press release on their website and their blog, they actually took a little stab at, other companies that need hot staging rings, interestingly enough. And saying that, when we hot stage, we don't need a hot staging ring. We just have, yeah, I know. I was like, okay, that's a bold way to say that, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off, right? So they have this new Andromeda engine, and they're claiming that they're going to launch. They're going to try to launch twice in 2025, as far as we know. I don't know. Having the engine is a big part of it, but I'm not sure about a launch this year. But also at the same time, the Andromeda engine, the Andromeda 2 engine, is actually a really, really cool design. It's kind of a completely out of left field design for a second stage engine. But, the idea is that obviously, on Nova, it hot stages, it goes up into space, and the second stage has a reusable payload fairing. The payload fairing opens, and then it closes again, and the second stage is actually shaped like a capsule, right? And the engine is shaped like a heat shield. And what happens when this thing comes back down is that heat shield is a metallic heat shield that has cold propellants from the second stage circulating through it during reentry, making it so it's basically kind of like an RL-10's expander cycle, but instead of exchanging heat with a nozzle, it's exchanging heat with the heat shield. So yeah, very interesting way of doing that there. But yeah, we recently got these new pictures, and it does look nice, as you can see. It's very, very. I like it. Now, they did take a dig at Starship in their blog post here. I don't know, Sawyer. Do you think this you think this thing's gonna have contention here or anything? Like, I don't know if you can compare it to Starship just because of hot stages, but also I think Stoke is kind of onto something with the reusable the metallic reusable thermal protection system. What do you think?
I mean, I think I like the idea of it. Of course, we got to mention it early enough. The shuttle went for the one that was attempted to be reusable, but turns out were not super easy to reuse during flight. They could, but they could damage easily. They had to have the water reinforcement for being able to sit outside on it. I like this idea, honestly. The fact that you're incorporating the already chilled propellants in to help with it. The metallic idea, which we've seen of the more recent rockets, just how strong some of these new age, space age metals can be. I think it's brilliant. And also, I love the idea that this feels so Kerbal. The fact that you have an engine that can be both optimized for vacuum, and then you can right-click on it, so to speak, and have it optimized for atmospheric flight. And also the fact that you're just jamming as many thrusters as you can into it with 24. I think that's just so cool. So I like the concept, and I think it's an improvement on what we saw with Shuttle, and definitely a little bit of inspiration from Starship, or at least they're both going for that same concept of, maybe we can go for these cool metallic tiles instead, which we didn't get to see how they worked on the last flight, but yeah.
They did something on that last flight, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think they were able to get that heat data from after the giant fire.
There was some heat, though.
That is true.
There was some heat, but yeah, I actually kind of think this is a really cool idea. This is a very, out of the box way of thinking, and I think that's what is needed if you really want to try to do full reuse like this. Dee, have you seen this heat shield? What do you think about this? It's pretty. I mean, not heat shield, it's a rocket engine. What do you think? I think it's pretty neat.
I think it's really cool. Anything that has just a ton of engines on it, it's gonna look really cool, and I can't wait to see it fly. And I mean, they're going for that second stage reuse. That's a huge deal. That will play a major part in getting costs down. That's what Starship's going for. Falcon 9 was able to cut its cost by reusing the first stage, but they are still making a brand new second stage for every single flight. That's a ton of money. That's a ton of time in manufacturing. And so going to this reuse of second stage will be huge and especially minimizing any sort of refurbishment that will be necessary. I mean, it's huge to get the cadence up and minimize the actual amount of hardware that needs to be built.
I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical of the no inspection between flights thing. I don't know how to feel about that. That's I don't know, man. Like like an airplane is like very reusable. That's like the golden standard for like reuse. Like rockets, like, oh, we got to make it like a 747, right? 747s are inspected before every flight. I'm not sure that that's like the wisest thing to say, you know. And I do like Stoke, but
I mean, if they can get it to that point where they are reusing and they do those inspections even without refurbishment to know for sure that yeah, we're good to keep flying. If they have enough sensors, enough data on board, I'm not sure we can say that like they'll eliminate all inspections, but if they can cut that down dramatically, that's a huge time saver.
I think it also depends in this case on the definition of inspection. 'Cause, I mean, if we're talking like a walk around like they do before every flight on an airplane, the captain walks around, kicks the tires, takes a look at all the brakes, checks out all the stuff on the wings, does a full inspection on it. They're obviously going to have to inspect the tiles afterwards. I think it would be ridiculous to think that they wouldn't. In terms of how much work would need to be done after each flight, I think that's going to come down to in the future of, okay, how good are they getting at it? The first couple flights, I'm guessing, like Starship, they're going to want to take it down, inspect it, do everything like that, and then eventually, once they get the pace up, hopefully it can just become as simple as, kick the tires and say it's good to go.
I don't think it has tires, Sort. No, I'm just kidding.
Claire, do you have a ghost in your apartment tonight?
Yeah, it's one of my exes apparently haunting me, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah. In case you're unaware, my light is kind of not working right at the moment. So, hey, hey, Kevin, you want to buy me a new light?
No.
Ghosts. Weird question mark.
Yeah. I guess it's me also just every time I think it does that because it's like I'm trying to get an idea, but instead it just smells smoke.
So you when you have a light bulb moment, it's off to the side?
Why would it be directly over your head? Of course.
What?
I mean, the only thing that's ever like directly over your head, I think, is the diamond on The Sims. That's about it. Everything else should be slightly askew.
I don't like
Rule
that
of thirds.
take.
Rule of thirds.
What?
I mean, I appreciate the rule of thirds, but at the same time, symmetry is another rule that can be used very effectively. And I think that symmetry is... I'm saying this as I'm watching your light flicker more. I think that symmetry is another important rule, the golden ratio. There's so many other things. We can't just stick to the rule of thirds and use that as a reason for everything being askew.
Symmetry, schmimmetry. Anyway.
Rocket engines.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be very curious to see what Stoke's definition of inspectionless motor is, because it's not a car, right? Let's not just start it up and good to go. Let's just go drive, right? Well, I guess we're gonna have to find out, because inspectionless to me means like, oh, you never have to touch, you never have to worry about it. Like, not even airplanes are like that. And the airline-like reliability is what, fully reusable vehicles are like pining for. So I'm curious as to what that means. Also, if you go and actually read their blog post, somebody over there really likes using commas a lot. I don't know if you guys read go read it. Go on Stoke's site and read it. Kevin, or show it. We got to get the link to it. I'll get you the link to it. It is. I was reading it on my stream the other day. I stream on Twitch, by the way, and it sounded. I had to read it in William Shatner's voice. And we are going to make sure that this engine is fully inspectionless when we go to fly, Mr. Spock. I'm like,
I mean, yeah, but here at NSF, we don't mind run-ons either, so it's totally fine. I mean, we run on all the time, especially on this show, where we probably should put some pauses in there, or at least stop mid-sentence, but instead we just keep going and drag things on a lot longer than they should, especially here on the Flame Trench, when people don't seem to stop other than just to take a breath, even though they're going on different tangents and different things. By the way, I'm Sawyer. Nice to see you here on the Flame Trench.
By the way, as long as we don't talk over each other, I think that's totally fine.
True.
I, for one, prefer to talk like this from now on, Mr. Spock.
Now, we do have a couple actual questions here, though. So, EJ, we got two that I'm going to kind of combine into one. Magnum is wondering, how will they attach and separate with this design? Are they traditional clamp attachments? Second stage would be expected on the second stage would be exposed to re-entry, and then also once it does re-enter, Blue Benji wants to know, how does it land?
Well, okay, so on their Andromeda 1 hopper, they did have they had like kind of, I want to call them landing legs, but they don't really seem like landing legs. They seem like just, a couple of internets, series of tubes that just like come off the booster, and they cut it. It's like a telescoping rod that just pops out and it lands on that. That's what the Andromeda 1 in the hopper had. I'm not sure about the finalized design. In terms of like staging and separation, there, if you look at the Andromeda engine on the inner ring, so like not the, like behind me, look at the ring where the nozzles are, right? And then you can actually see there's some kind of, all right, hold up. I can do this. There's some kind of attachment mechanism right there. And right there. And wait, right there. Okay, you get the idea. It seems like there's some attachment mechanism on this. I mean, if they're flowing propellants through some like cooling channels in their heat shield, you can put stuff on it. It doesn't have to be like flat. You can put an attachment mechanism on it. As long as it stays cool, if it's metallic, you'll be fine, which is quite interesting. And yeah, here's a little bit of tests. That's them testing the Andromeda 1 engine right there. I mean, another cool. What's up?
They've got so many distinct flames on there, and so often it's like we see all the engines combine into one plume. I'm really looking forward to that because it is so visually distinct.
Yeah, I mean that's one motor. One motor is doing that with multiple nozzles, which isn't a new thing in the industry. That's the RD-108 from the Semyorka ICBM has been doing that since the mid 50s, right? Like, and then ultimately into Soyuz and Vostok, Voshkod, Soyuz, right? Multi-nozzle engines have been a thing for a little while. Stoke's just kind of taken that to the next level, which is, that's pretty nutty. I mean, that right there, once again, this video is that's an older animation right there. That's the Andromeda 1 design. If you notice, there's kind of a lip around the heat shield between where the nozzles are and where their heat shield is. The new design does not have that. Doesn't have any of that, but yeah, those little lines that are on the sides of that thing are its landing legs. It's like a telescoping thing that pops out on the sides and it lands. That they did test those with their hopper, which is pretty cool. I mean, they didn't retract or anything, but yeah, it's a pod-shaped second stage. I got you, Scott. Yeah, no worries. So very interesting.
You said 2 flights in 2025 is what they're aiming for.
Yeah.
Do you think that will happen? And
maybe one.
I want to hear both of your thoughts. EJ, I'll start with you.
Yeah, maybe one, Sawyer. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff they got to figure out with this. And I'm not trying to go Ryan Weber here. Ryan, I love you, dude. I'm not like, there's a lot of stuff they got to figure out. Like, I mean, Stoke has never launched anything to space. So there's the challenges with, first time getting into orbit, right? But this is such an unorthodox engine design, right? it's not like you can use some like off the shelf guidance system. Not that there is, right? Like this is going to take it's going to take some time to dial that Andromeda engine in, because like another thing I was going to get to, right, is, and this is I could just use this as a matter of fact to answer your question, right? Okay, where's your thrust vector control on that thing, right? Second stages have gimbals, right? They have a thrust vector control nozzle. They have a gimbaled nozzle, so that there's hydraulics that can turn the engine in different directions, right? To get it to to guide it where it needs to go. That doesn't have that. They're using thrust modulation to control pitch and yaw rates, which is okay. That's a little bit tricky to solve. Like, I'm not going to say that Stoke doesn't have the chops to solve it. If you have the chops to engineer an engine like this, clearly you could figure it out. But, that's just one thing off the top of my head. The second thing is, look, talk is cheap in the spaceflight industry. Talk is super cheap. I could say I'm going to the moon tomorrow with my moon rocket that I have, just in my spare change drawer, right? Like, you don't... Talk is cheap. Show me the hardware. Now, don't get me wrong. Stoke has hardware. They have engines. But where's the stages? Where's this upper stage? Now, don't get me wrong. They probably have it teed up. They're probably just not showing us. But once again, we don't know that. So until we see some hardware, I usually say this, guys, look for the hardware. And we'll get more into this. I'll elaborate more on this at the end of the show. He said moron. At the end of the show, when we're talking about Starship. Like, it's always easy to see, or it's easier to see when a Starship flight is going to happen. Like, and it's easier to predict if you see the booster and the ship just, moving around on SPMTs around Starbase, right? Show me the hardware. Now, that's a pretty good start right there. Not going to lie. Pretty good start. And their first stage engines too. I think they're called the Zenith. So we got the most important parts here, the parts that you need to go. But where's the rest of it? We got to see the rest of it. Where's this reusable fairing you're talking about? Where's the pod-shaped second stage? I'm not saying this is stuff that, see, modulated thrust. Oh, where'd you find this? This is great.
That's from Stoke. They call it the hula hoop, by the way.
Yeah, they're modulating thrust to control pitch and yaw rates. That's, dude, like I said, that's super cool, but that's gonna be a little bit of a challenge to dial in for sure. So I don't know, Sawyer. Like, maybe one launch this year. I can believe once, but I need to see the hardware. D, what do you think? Yes, two?
I mean,
no?
I would agree with you. I'm so excited to see them fly, but I really don't see 2 launches. Like, I can't see 2 launches happening this year. We think about Starship, like they had such a long wait from their first flight, and this is a very lofty goal. They're very different, like, development strategies and whatnot, but the idea that they will so quickly get to 2 launches, I just can't see it.
Now, the other insight that you have, D, that's very unique is that you keep track of everything going on with these KSC flyovers that we do. And in the most recent one, which if you haven't watched, you totally should right here on the channel, we actually flew over Stoke. So where are they at with actual launch ground systems from what you saw?
I don't recall, to be totally honest there. I've got the wide
There's
angles.
your answer then.
So like, they are making progress. They are making progress out there, but it's not like they are ready to go. And we know, like, stage 0 is pretty necessary for launches.
Yeah, just a little. The ground infrastructure there.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing that they were starting to put tanks in, and they were doing some digging on the area where they were working on the launch mount. But that's the thing right now. It's still mostly piles of dirt. I'm sure, as we've seen with SpaceX, people can move very quickly with the architecture at launch sites. But that is a concerning factor, too. Of you can have a rocket ready, but if you don't have a place to launch it, what are you going to do?
That's all. Like I said, dude, talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. It's great. Oh, you're going to launch in 2025 with what launch pad? All right, show us the launch, but show me the money. Doesn't make you feel better just to say that. Say it with me. Show me the money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? There you go. But either way. What?
No, you go first.
I was like, but either way, it is cool to see progress. Like, the progress is great. But yeah, we need, I want to see the whole thing. I'm sorry, I'm greedy. I'm greedy, chat. I want to see the whole rocket. I want to see the thing launch.
I mean, we all do, and of course we'll cover it as it does. But yeah, remember, talk is cheap, birds are cheap.
Is that what you were...
Yes, that's why I wanted you to finish first, because it was just for a terrible pun. But there is the flyover, by the way. So if you haven't watched it yet, go check it out. See some of the amazing work they're already doing over at Roberts Road for Starship. And yes, we check in on all the smaller companies too. What's going on? What's going to happen with SpaceX's landing zones, especially if there are plans to move them? How is Stoke doing? What's going on over at Blue's campus? All of that on the latest KSC flyover right here on the NSF YouTube channel. All right.
That was nicely done.
I do want to thank some people here for crazy generous support already. Space Pope, the Space Pope, with the $50 super chat. Bless this trench and the people who make it possible. Thank you. Some praise for D with a $50 tip at tips.nasaspaceflight.com. Methane Man says, lol D, DY's too funny.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was a brilliant open, by the way, so...
It was not my idea. I
thought tell them that.
Execute
Take credit.
That. I'm not stealing credit here. We're all about giving credit where it's deserved.
I thought we broke it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought we broke something. I'm like, this is great. Oh, it's on purpose. Okay.
Me too. So that made it even better.
Thanks, Kevin.
We break
and
it?
Creasy with $10 saying, welcome to the flame trench of love. I like that. Turtle saying, let's just say that Jack isn't here because he finally got a date for Valentine's? That's mean.
Hey, we don't lie to each other here, okay? That's
says the married man.
Hey, I don't have a girlfriend if that's what you're asking, all right? Like, just saying.
Tell Brimo we say hi.
All right, we'll do. Oh, hey, Jack. Oh, geez, he's in chat.
Oh no! Oh no, he's in chat. We're in trouble.
Geez, guys.
Eric Frazier, Sawyer Ghostbusters Fund or New Light Fund, your choice.
Brimo says hi.
Kevin.
Oh, keep doing this. This is great. Look at how red in the face he's getting, chat. This is awesome. look at This is great. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Oh, I'm sorry. That's terrible. Oh, you brought it back, my friend. Thank you.
Well, these are going to be gifted so hard later. Anyway.
Bye, Jack.
Echo Deal saying he just kept talking in one long, seemingly unbroken sentence so that no one had a chance to interrupt. It was quite hypnotic. Yeah.
I don't think that was how you say that.
Space Pope again, blessing some nearby drinking water that Sawyer can flick at the lamp. Also throw down with Eric Frazier on the lamp fund. Well, thank you.
I love lamp.
Yes. I love lamp. You know what else I love? Getting stuff from shop.nasaspaceflight.com.
That was good. That was good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, what can you get there, Sawyer?
Yeah. It seems like maybe we might have an update from the shop person here of some cool things going on. So let's see what we got. First up, Flight 7 patches, baby. There you go. They are now shipping. Patches have arrived in the warehouse. So the Flight 7 patches are finally at the warehouses. We have a few more left. So if you want them, they are no longer a pre-order. They will actually start to ship. Check that out at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Yes, they're finally happening. And again, this is just like all of our other Starship patches. Once they are gone, they are gone. There are no more reprints. We are not putting out a second, here's a reissue of these. Once they are gone, they are gone. So if you don't get one and you miss out, eBay maybe, but I don't know.
eBay?
Yeah, don't do that. You could also just beg some people in the forums or check out in the Discord if you're Capcom and above and see who has, but yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Craigslist. instead. Never mind.
Okay, yeah. Anyway,
Should we
wanted
go
to
on to the
get that
next
note
one?
out there. What?
I think we should move to the next news. Sawyer, what's going on with Blue Ghost?
Okay. Blue Ghost, yes. Wait, who's hosting this?
I don't know. D, you want to do it? D, do the segue.
Oh, I guess I'll take over. Yeah. So
No,
now that we've finished talking about Stoke, let's move on to Moonlanders with your host Sawyer.
Thanks. Yeah,
See?
EJ taking my job here.
D did better than I. That was a better segue than me. Just saying.
Admittedly, you're pulling a me when Jack is here. But anyway, Moonlanders. So we talked a little bit about it last week, but we have more updates. I mean, check out this absolutely gorgeous footage. That's the moon! And that is the Blue Ghost lander. Yes, at this point, Blue Ghost is on its way to the moon officially. As we know, it's been in Earth orbit, kind of just orbiting around there after its launch in the middle of January. And now they performed a whole bunch of tests to make sure that the payloads, the lander, everything on board, all their systems, everything is ready to go. So already, just from the testing alone that they've done, they've already sent back 15 gigabytes of data from space, which I know nowadays Microsoft Flight Simulator uses that in about 5 minutes, but still, 15 gigabytes of data from space is pretty cool. So we're talking science data for NASA missions is included in there. I mean, NASA themselves has said, hey, yeah, we're getting some of that data. We're proving that our payloads are healthy on board and are ready to work on the lunar surface. So there it is. There is Blue Ghost and the moon in one shot. I have to give a shout out to Firefly because the imagery that they have been providing for this particular mission is absolutely stunning. It's so cool to just see regular updates of, yeah, there's Earth. Oh, there's Earth going away. Oh, now there's the moon as they continue to work on it. So I appreciate their openness of sharing these awesome, awesome images. I just have to put that out there. It's not the only moon lander that launched in mid-January. In fact, it was on the same rocket, also going to the moon. Hakuto R2, Electric Boogaloo, is on its final orbit of the Earth. So, in a similar way to Firefly, it's slowly been increasing the size of its orbit, a little bit higher. So, at this point now, its final orbit, where it is at its furthest, 460,000 kilometers away from the Earth. But it is, as far out as that is, it is just shy of actually reaching escape velocity. So that'll be the next step, is getting that final escape velocity, and then making its way out to the moon for its lander. So lots of exciting things happening in lunar exploration. So, I mean, this feels like a whole new era, because you have these two, we have IM2 coming up later this month. I mean, is this a lunar revolution, EJ? Is this too much? Is this not enough? What are your thoughts on just the pace that we're seeing now for lunar exploration uncrewed?
It's pretty good. Okay. All right. I want to precursor this with saying, look, I love the Commercial Lunar Payload Services program. That was a stroke of genius two administrators ago, technically, if count this current one that hasn't been confirmed yet, right? So Jim Bridenstine kind of championed that whole thing. It's a great idea. It's a really good idea. But here's the thing. It did offload a little bit of NASA's, missions, right? It offloaded them to, is this a rubber duck? Is this the rubber duck thing? It's the rubber duck thing. Okay. How you going to expect me to give an explanation when he's talking about rubber ducks? Look at this man, that beautiful, handsome engineer with a rubber duck.
And we expect it because that's your job?
Oh, yeah. All right, fine. Fine. Okay. Where I'm going with this is that I like Commercial Lunar Payload Services, but commercial programs really succeed when they have a place to go. And yeah, the moon technically is a destination, right? But what happens when we get to the point when there's astronauts there and they're exploring down on the moon? Are we going to keep sending these landers? Like, I'm kind of taking the contrarian position on most things today, right? Like, but hey, whatever, it's fine. I like commercial lunar payload services, but in order for commercial programs to survive in the long term, like commercial crew or commercial orbital transport services, which is, commercial resupply, right? It's all kind of under the same umbrella, so to speak. In order for all this to work, you need a destination, right? And when these are designed to be precursor missions, right? So if they're designed to be precursor missions, what happens when we're past precursor missions, right? Is there going to be a lunar market? Are we going to send people to space? Is there going to be a city on the moon? I mean, don't get me wrong, I want that, and hopefully this kind of gets us there, but I just, what's going to happen after these commercial missions? There's got to be a follow-up, like there's CRS-2, which is a follow-up to the original commercial crew program, which SpaceX is doing pretty good at. But what happens when we're out of precursor missions? Are we just going to keep sending these things over and over and over again until we have them dotted all over the moon? What's the long term here? I love CLIPS. I think it's a great interim solution, but I do think that NASA does need more long-term solutions. They seem to be not kind of, we talked about this last week, sorry. They seem to kind of not be focusing on, what's 10 years down the road. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, oh, we'll get to the moon. Okay, then what? We'll get there to stay. Okay, how are you going to do that? Magnets. So I think CLIPS is great in the interim, but I don't know, man. We got to, I don't know where it's going to go after these precursor missions are done. D, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, you made a lot of great points there. It's really exciting that we have all these missions to the moon, and there are a lot of successes to be had, but also we've got a while to go before we have a return that I don't want to say proves valuable, because I think all of these landers are valuable, but it's not like beyond them being commercial, these are overly revolutionary missions quite yet. And I think it's going to take some time to get there, and it's going to take continuing to value. We'll have to continue to value the journey to the moon and having rovers, and we have to place value in all of that for us to see a revolution. But I mean, I think we do see. We're seeing so many more missions, and I think that's a great thing, and I really hope it continues.
I mean, yeah, that's really the point there. Especially if there's, and this is a topic coming up very shortly, questions about SLS and its future. What is our dedication to actually landing on the lunar surface? We know SpaceX Starship, the goal is Mars. Do they see a future in setting up a base on the moon? Do we see a potential for lunar Starship to be something more than just for NASA's lunar program? And if the answer is no, then we're getting great science here, but it's not serving any real purpose. If our goal is, as it claims to be able to land on the moon and permanently live there, or at least set up a base now to live there, have a base of operations for future lunar exploration, then it's kind of useless if you don't have any plans to actually be there and stay there. I appreciate what they're doing now. I appreciate there's a lot of different missions, but right now it doesn't seem like there's a main focus with these missions. It's, oh, let's do lots of science in the lunar South Pole, which is where we want to aim for, but it's not really exactly what we need for a continued lunar presence, more of a short-term lunar presence. Interesting to see different thoughts to that. So, yeah.
I have a thought. Can I put out my thought?
Yeah.
Hi, Kevin.
We went to the moon so long ago, and I think the benefit of these missions, the commercial lunar payload services, is that what it's called? Services?
Yeah.
Program. I think the whole reason was because we just wanted to throw a whole bunch of darts and see if we could find the technology that's going to get us there. And I think it was the right idea because it provided a lot of funding to a lot of smaller companies that needed it, and some bigger companies too, and kind of got our eyes set back on the moon. Because every single one of these missions, especially the way Firefly is marketing this mission, it's getting more people excited about the idea of the moon.
Yeah.
You know, we forgot about the moon for so long, and it's right there. Like, we see it every day. We don't see Mars every day, but we see the moon every day, and we should be there. And I think this program is so important to just getting people excited and developing new technology. That's my thought. Bye.
Kevin, hold up. No. Stay on the line. Stay on the long-time listener, first-time caller. No, stay on the line. So, all right. That's all fine and dandy, dude. But the point that I'm trying to make is that, you're getting all these people hyped. You're getting all these people, psyched up about going to the moon. And then we go, and then these missions aren't here anymore because there's no need for precursor missions anymore. So you're setting people up for Apollo again. Only with, we do get a moon base, and that's good. But how long before that moon base just becomes like the ISS? People take the ISS for granted. Don't even act like they don't. Right? Like, oh, yeah, of course we have a continual presence in space, right? Of course this is a thing. That's what I mean about long term. This is great for the short term, and it's great to drum up hype. If you asked an Apollo engineer in 1968 that the program would be out and gone by 1975, they would have looked at you funny. You know what I mean? But the lack of sustainability there, setting up your program for the long term, really ended up screwing them. That's what I mean. That could happen. That it could happen here too. Like, it needs to be more concrete architecture out on a much further timeline. And NASA is good at doing that. NASA keeps the flame going, right? Like that's how it works. Like, I'm just saying, like, it's awesome and it's great for hype, but that's interim, dude. People will get bored of this, and then there's going to be nothing after that. So, I mean, where do we go from there? I guess I'm not saying I hate the Commercial Lunar Payload Services program. I think it's fantastic. It's just, okay, what's the next step? Where are we going with it?
I've seen a couple of people in chat basically saying that the point of this is to kind of get things started for them to grow further. I've seen a couple of people saying that in chat as I'm just reading through it now.
Yeah, I mean, my question is,
we're giving them the smaller kind of exploratory jobs now so that they can build up their confidence, test out the technologies, so that once we do have, more lunar exploration, these are the companies that will become the freighters that will act as kind of like a Cargo Dragon or a Cygnus to the moon type deal.
Yeah, but for Cargo Dragon and Cygnus to exist, they needed to keep going over long periods of time. It's not just something that exists in like a 5 to 6 year window. Because remember, even NASA wants to, jump into trying to figure out how to go to Mars in like the 2030s, right? Like, that's what they want to do. I mean, that's going to happen. Who knows? But my point is that CLPS is a great start. But a great start is what the Apollo program was. Like, you need to play it. It needs to go further, right? Like, I'm not saying I hate it. The only part about CLPS that I really hate is NASA insisting on sending a block of metal instead of a rover, like the one you see on your screen. But you see what I'm trying to say? Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just, I like CLPS. I think it's a great idea. Where are you going with it after? Should we use CLPS to resupply a lunar base? If so, we should start drawing up those contracts now. That should be something should be figuring out now. Like, because you can't just be like, oh yeah, we're going to do it.
Bidding process for commercial acquisition. Like, I think that was a massive step back for that to be canceled for like, what, a couple $1 million when, like, it's done.
Hang on. Oh, there we go. Continue, sorry.
It's like they did so much work. They were basically done. It was ready. They have a vehicle to get it there, like, and then they're just, no, we'll hand it to the commercial partners. We're not doing this. That was I think a huge setback.
Yeah. Speaking of setback, we are back, by the way. So if you see us and other people don't, please just tell them to refresh the page. We are back. Thank you, YouTube.
YouTube is telling us that we are healthy. It's saying stream is healthy, and it never warned me that we weren't healthy. And you know what? I think creating all this competition towards the lunar surface is healthy as well. Like we were talking about before, it's about building up new technology and giving companies opportunities. And my Alexa is talking to me. Got to stop talking.
You can't say that word while you're on comms, Kevin. It causes more issues.
True. It is not focus time yet, but anyway. I think we're kind of all in agreement at the point that there isn't a full point yet, and we need that point to be able to then, continue onward.
Chris said something really interesting on a Raptor side, and it's a little political, but I'll bring it up anyways. Every 4 years we have a new president in the White House and a new vision, and I think one problem is NASA hasn't been planning as far forward, and a lot of timelines have flipped because of that. And now we're kind of stuck in a place where we don't know where Artemis is going, or where SpaceX is going, or where Starship is going. And like Elon's like, we're going to Mars. He hasn't even talked about the moon lately, So I think we need a country vision, and we need a worldwide vision. That's why I think these programs are cool, because you know what? India's excited because India's gone to the moon. Like, Japan, the United States, like that's what gets people behind it, and that's how we get a worldwide vision, I think, for what happens on the moon after these smaller missions.
Exactly. Off the soapbox, you good? Because there's a poll going on in chat right now, and the question is, your plan, is it moon then Mars or straight to Mars? And 84% of you say moon then Mars, at least as of this moment in the poll.
No. See. All right, hold up. No. I'm jumping in. See, that's thinking about it completely wrong. That is exactly what I'm talking about. I see this in the spaceflight community all the time. People are like, no, we got to go to Mars. No, we got to go to the moon. Oh no, we shouldn't go to the moon. We've already been there. How about we develop a Martian architecture that's also capable of landing on the moon, and then test it on the moon, and then go to Mars? You're thinking about this the wrong way. You can have your cake and eat it too. We just have to think about a long-term enough solution here. And before people say like, oh, EJ, there's Gateway, and then dude, when my poop turns purple, I'll believe that Gateway could be used as something that could get you to Mars. All right? No way. That is a buoy out in space. That's like saying I'm going to use this buoy to cross the ocean. That's not no. I'm talking about a real transfer vehicle. Like, I don't want to be that guy, but something like Starship, that's way more robust. Starship is designed to get to the surface of Mars, and with that architecture, you can easily get to the moon. See what I'm talking about?
Exactly, and that's something that this would be great for Clips. I mean, use these vehicles to test those engines, test the surfaces, test how well your radars work, things like that. If you want to test it on another planetary body that has lesser gravity, why not start at 1/6 before working to 1/3?
I would definitely agree. Like, we should have that goal to get to Mars, and we should work towards Mars. But I think the moon is a good stepping stone to get back there. I think it's a more achievable short-term solution, even if, like you said, it's developing a Martian lander that can also land on the moon. I would be in favor of that, but I definitely want both, and I want it as soon as possible.
Kind of like how you have 777s that'll do a 50-minute flight, or 747s that'll travel for an hour, when in reality you're talking about 12+ hour flights that they can handle. It serves the same purpose. That's kind of what we need, is like a 747 that can land on the moon. Sure, it's probably not the best use of it, but it can do it, but is also then designed for that longer flight. Hopefully that comparison actually kind of makes sense.
I am in favor of putting 747s on the moon. I am in favor of this plan. I just want to let it be known.
Let's do like all the movies do. Let's send a shuttle to the moon.
There you go. Now we're talking.
You used the 747 analogy, right? I had to look this up because I couldn't remember exactly what it was. The 18-hour and 50-minute Singapore Airlines flight from Singapore to New York was not the first flight ever, right? So you have to think big, but you can't just think, okay, we're gonna travel to Pluto. Like I think you know what I mean? Go ahead, EJ.
No, that. I mean, I want to go to Pluto.
I do too. Let's go.
I mean, if we build something that, has enough delta V or an architecture that's flexible enough to be able to get to Pluto, you can absolutely build something that goes to Mars. That's the whole point that I'm trying to make.
I get it.
Do you, though? You sure about that?
But, it takes a lot longer to fail going to Pluto than it does to Mars.
Are you sure about that? All right. Yeah, I suppose.
I know you don't want people to agree with you, but I do agree. But we have to go to the moon first. Whether we're developing an architecture for Mars or Pluto, we have to go to the moon first.
We should. It's right there.
It's there.
Okay, so we're just all in total agreement that we have to go to the moon first, then let's go to Mars, but let's not set our sights short of Mars, right? Are we actually all in agreement here, or am I misunderstanding your take?
No, I think we are. And
wait, all right. Flame Church, there's supposed to be fighting bells, and
I was gonna say
what?
I don't know. I'm confused. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Are we fighting the audience? Anyone who disagrees?
There you go. Yes.
Yes,
like chat. This time you are the opposing viewpoint, although most of you tend to agree with us here.
Yeah, we're fighting the 16%, I guess, that voted on Straight to Mars.
Car's running real good.
Which I think another thing that we're all in agreement on would have to be support for Jack in a Kilt, because Michael Oliver with a $50 tip at tips.nasaspaceflight.com saying, "When Yak in a Kilt, I know you're in chat." And if that wasn't enticing enough, it turns out that was actually a typo. It was not supposed to be 50. It was supposed to be 500. So to make up for it, Michael Oliver with a $450 tip to make it a $500 total, saying, "When Yak in a Kilt, Part 2. Holy kilts. Jack, you ready? Thank you so much for that. And not just the generosity with that, also using tips.nasaspaceflight.com, another kind of more direct way to help us here. I mean, wow. Thank you.
No
we were
kilt.
able to... Whoa. Get back here. What'd you say? He just left.
Please tell me you heard that, chat. Please tell me you heard that. Please tell me.
I really hope they heard that.
Did you just say no kill?
They did.
Yeah, he hopped in for just long enough to yell.
All right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We can't do what we do without support like this. So thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, I think on Valentine's Day, it's safe to say we love you. And we love your support.
And that's why this show is not called The Flame Trench.
Of course we still love you.
Oh, God. That's the code. Spoiler alert. We were given a big warning that there was going to be some kind of Valentine's Day discount at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We were not told what the code was. We were told we were going to find out live on the air. So there it is. You can get 15% off merch at the shop using the code The Love Trench.
The Love Trench?
No. No.
Forget the Love Boat.
It's not worth it to have to type that. It's not worth it.
Who thought of this? Who thought this was a good idea?
Come on, Adrian.
Oh my God, yeah. And including the shuttle with the hearts on it. That's Ryan Caden who did that graphic.
Wait. Can we get one of those with Aries 1X?
No. That's
I agree
the
with
hate
Dave.
trench.
We should do... Hey! No! Oh my... The Love Trench.
That's so bad.
Please tell me someone else has the Love Boat theme now going through their head, but just to with the words, the Love Trench. I mean... Oh my gosh. So yes, shop.nasaspaceflight.com, 50% off using that atrocious code.
It sounds so wrong.
Yeah, I really don't like that at all.
So why?
What's the next topic?
Oh my god. NASA, Chris Bergen saying, I did not set up NSF in 2005 for this. Thank you.
Yeah, but you got it. You inadvertently orchestrated these events. It's kind of your fault, man. I'm just saying.
I mean, we... Yes, rockets start now firing hearts instead of Hydrolux or Carolox or Methalox.
Hydrolox?
I mean, in terms of the percentage, apparently I'm being told in the back channel, why is it 14% or 15%? Well, because obviously Valentine's Day, February 14th, so 14. Plus, you're our number one. So treat yourself. So it's February 14th plus the 1% is yourself. So go ahead and treat yourself. That's 15%, apparently.
That's a DOS joke, isn't it?
Yes, it absolutely is.
Yeah, it is.
It's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Oh, God.
We love DOS, but it's very much a DOSism.
Okay.
Anyway.
So speaking of things that I really don't like that code, we have some layoffs to talk about. So Blue Origin is downsizing. Well, they did not make an official announcement, but there was an all-hands meeting this week where they announced they are laying off roughly 10% of their workforce, which is more than 1,000 people. So the reasoning given for this was the CEO, Dave Limp, said that they were hiring too many people, and there were positions specifically in like middle management that were like no longer needed, and there was too much bureaucracy. They'd gone on a hiring spree, but they needed to cut back in some cases, which, I mean, it's really sad to see, and this is right on the heels of their first launch of New Glenn. So they're actively like building out teams so much. We see the facilities that they are building here. We fly over them all the time, and they're working towards a second flight of New Glenn, of course, and towards first stage recovery. They have so much they're working for, and they are going to continue actually hiring in select positions where it makes sense to continue to build out the company. But they decided to have this cutback that they announced, I believe, yesterday. So, I mean, well, EJ, what do you think? Like, if they're laying off 10% of the employees, it doesn't sound good, but it seemed like the CEO was really trying to lessen the blow, saying that they were continuing to grow just like in the right areas, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, D, this could go both ways, right? Like, I don't think this is like a huge red flag, like, they're in trouble. Like, I don't think that's what's going on here, but I mean, I kind of get the whole cut in bureaucracy thing, but I don't know. I mean, you know, I'll say, like, from a systems engineering point of view, right? When a rocket moves to operational status, right, you generally see a reduction in workforce. This happened during the Apollo program. It happened during the shuttle. Heck, it happened at SpaceX when Falcon 9 Block 5 started flying. It happened in 2019. This does happen. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, yeah, layoffs are a good thing. No. Like, you never want to see that happen to anybody, right? But it does seem to be a fairly normal occurrence here. However, you know, I can't help but think, like, okay, you're getting rid of bureaucracy, like, you know, that like maybe it's Dave Limp, you know, changing the culture of Blue comparatively to like when Bob Smith, the previous CEO, was who stepped down, was there. Maybe he's trying to make a shift in the culture. And I'll admit, I do like what Dave Limp is doing. He's been very transparent about New Glenn and everything, right? Like, he's been pretty good. But also, at the same time, like, bro, you've been in charge of this company for almost, like, actually a year and a half now. Took you this long? Like, how much of that is there because you're there? Like, I don't know. I got to ask these questions. I'm just trying to turn it over in my head. So, like, I don't think it's a red flag. It seems kind of normal, but also, you know, you see a reduction in workforce. You could just say we don't need as many people developing the vehicle because the vehicle's developed already. But
I mean,
go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I think that's a really good point, but there's also, like, they're trying to land their first stage still. They did not successfully land their first stage on their first flight, so they still have work to do there. They have a lot to continue to build out. They need to build up their cadence to be able to fly. I believe it was, every 16 days is what they were looking at. I could be wrong there. Like, they have a lot of growing they have to do. So I really hope this is just that small setback on the way to getting there, and it really is just like increasing efficiency, cutting management, more so than any sign of anything bad to come. I don't think it is. Like, they're planning on ramping up all of their launches they can, but it's not fun to see such a widespread layoff still.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sawyer.
It's just really interesting. I mean, there are areas where we're seeing lots of layoffs, and there's others where we're not. I mean, we had, NASA's obviously cutting back along with a lot of federal government agencies. But in terms of private companies, you've got a kind of comparison here. You've got Blue that's cutting a bunch of its employees. Then compare it to Vast Space, which, if you haven't seen our interview with them, it is 72 of the greatest minutes you'll ever watch, in my opinion. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's
They're talking about how quickly they're expanding and adding more people to this project. They're talking they want to have 1,000 people for what's, in comparison, a small company. I get you want to build up that employee base. You want to get more people working on your stuff. And then you realize, okay, we kind of did it and trimmed down to your smallest amount. But it just blows my mind that here you've got a company that wants to launch every 16 days and is cutting back its workforce that's finally getting into the groove, whereas you have something like Vast where they are constantly short of employees. They want more engineers. I don't know. It's such a weird dichotomy.
See, Sawyer, that's exactly what I'm talking about, dude. It sounds like they overhired. It sounds like they hired too many people. It sounds like they expanded their workforce, and the workforce expansion didn't correlate to, like, launching more, like the hardware expansion, right? Like, that's probably not the right way to say that, right? If that's the case, I don't know anything about running a company, right? Like, I mean, if you call my stream running a company, I'm arguably pretty bad at that, right? Like, it's, I don't know anything about running a company. Like, is this something that could, like, is a long-term problem? Is this like trying to fix a long-term problem? Like, you were in charge. Like, Dave Limp was there when they've had a hiring freeze from what I understand for like the last 6 months, but Dave Limp was there before that. So he got into this company and they just started hiring people willy-nilly. And now he's like, oh, well, we got to come to work for us. Like, all right, like, what's going on here? Like, it seems normal, but also, like, I do have some questions. I mean, frankly, questions are probably never going to hear, but, I'm still like, okay.
The other thing with that for me is just how quickly it happened. You're talking, this crazy mass hiring. There are people that were just onboarded months ago. Lots of people that were just brought on, a couple that I've spoken to, and now all of a sudden they're all gone instantly. It's like, okay, yep, we're going to ramp it up. Let's get all these people in, and 3 months later, you're out of a job now. The timing on that is also crazy. Again, like you were pointing out, I guess trying to want to get more people working on New Glenn to get it off the ground as fast as possible. But still, I don't know. Something irks me with that.
And like something here, we see they just opened up this very large parking lot at their exploration park facility. Like, they are growing very, very rapidly. In so many ways. They're getting new buildings constantly. They are clearing land. They're constantly adding to this, and this is actually a bit of a member behind the scenes video of just all the video. It's 10 minutes of video from Over Blue. So if you want to see even more of this, check out the member program. But you can see there are, like, just in that shot, 3 different buildings in construction. There's that new parking lot on the left side there. They are growing very rapidly. And so it makes sense that, okay, they might have hired the wrong positions to facilitate that growth. And now that they've gotten a flight out of the way, they want to rehire the correct people to make their future flights, their future development more efficient.
Part of it is also kind of just the culture of things, though. As a certain Jack Beyer pointed out in chat, pizza party, just saying. Who wants to touch that one?
You don't want? He doesn't want a pizza party?
Yeah. So
yeah,
there were some. I'll touch on it very, very briefly. There were some public posts on Reddit and such from employees talking about how their reward for the successful flight of New Glenn was a pizza party, and a pizza party that didn't even, like, it wasn't even practical for everyone to make it to. So I could understand how some people felt a little jaded by that.
Oh, and next Friday is Hawaiian t-shirt day. So just go ahead and wear a Hawaiian t-shirt.
Of the ways to boost company morale, pizza party is not great. There was wording that it was just a single pizza party, so worked overnights. Well, end up like most nurses in a hospital. All the good food comes during the day, or a newsroom, as I can say from past experience. But I mean, yeah, if that's your way to morale boost, is to do a pizza party and then cut 10% of the workforce, you might lose more than 10% of the workforce, just out of people saying, you know what, this may not be the environment that I thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the stereotypical bad HR reaction or bad manager reaction. It's like, oh, you're unhappy? No, you don't get what you want. Here, have some pizza. This will make you happy. It's yeah.
Yeah, one of my thank yous for having a #1 newscast in the market was a gift card to Walmart. So, I get it. Yeah. I don't know. All of that just kind of bugs me, the way that it's being done. There are people, again, like I was saying, I spoke to some people that were laid off and others that still have their job, and they're happy there, which is great. That's what we need. That's what we want. We want these companies to grow, and obviously it's a business. I get that. They need to make money. You can't just hire all of these people and not make money doing it. It just feels like the way that it was done, it's just, I don't know, it feels dirty.
Yeah, and it's not the only layoffs we've been seeing this week.
Smooth as butter, that transition. D, what else is happening?
Well, Boeing has been preparing for some massive SLS layoffs. So they are cutting their SLS portion of the staff from around 800 people down to 400. That could be signaling that they maybe feel there are changes on the way for SLS, maybe changes to the Artemis program. But we don't know. We really don't know what it is beyond there have been these reports of layoffs, and then we saw a few reporters talking about, their layoffs were half of the staff. So we'll have to wait and see what the future of SLS is with this. We don't really know why they decided to do these cutoffs of staff so early, and that's happening up until April, I believe. They're starting to lay off staff.
I'm guessing this kind of ties in as well to what we saw with Eric Berger last week, which was on the braking trench of the fact that, Boeing is getting word out that there could be some people getting laid off big time related to their Space Department and SLS.
All right.
You policy guy here. This one's on you.
I
The
don't
spicy
really
policy
have
guy, at least. What are your thoughts?
You guys got to remember, this wasn't layoffs. These are notice of layoffs, and they, by law, have to do that. If they think that they might be laying off people, they have to give people notice, so they don't just be like, "Yo, bye, enjoy the curb." Right now, I don't know. Could it be in response to a policy? Yeah. If you wanted my honest opinion, I'm gonna get spicy, not too spicy. Don't worry. This is just, mild stuff, like the first sauce on hot ones spicy. Okay, like just we're not at number 10. Okay, we're not at number 10. We're number 1. So bear with me. Personally, and I'm gonna throw this out there. I want to see what everybody thinks. I think that this is anticipation of contract restructuring for SLS. What does that mean? I think SLS's procurement structure is awful. It's terrible. There's no scheduling milestones here. There's no interim goals, despite stuff actually having interim in the name, interim cryogenic propulsion stage, right? SLS needs to be completely retooled, the contracting structure. Now, for what it's worth, all right, people are gonna like turn their nose up at me for this one, and I get it, but bear with me here, okay? Look, I don't think SLS is too expensive, and I definitely don't think it's a bad piece of hardware. You know why I don't think it's a bad piece of hardware? Because it launched, it works. All right, there's that's few that you come across launch vehicles like that can get you to the moon. Those come once every 50 years, empirically, right? So you probably don't want to get rid of that. The hardware is good, right? But the procurement is awful, right? And I don't think it's too expensive either. If what are you going to compare it to? You're going to compare it to the Saturn V, even adjusting for inflation. Go look at the prices. Look at the price of a launch for a Saturn V. Adjust that for inflation and compare it to even the worst case scenario launch of SLS at like $4 billion, which I personally don't think it's going to be that much, right? That was theorized. Even the Office of Investigator General cites a launch at $2.2 billion, all right? So it's not as expensive, all right, if you compare it to the Saturn V. Everybody likes to sit here and say it's too expensive. Compared to what? Compared to what? Compared to what? So what I think really needs to be done is the hardware is good, right? The hardware is good and the price is okay. Could it get better? Sure. It's going to get better if you launch it more. You have to launch more, not less. Launching less makes your expensive vehicle more expensive. This is not rocket science. So I think these potential layoffs are for restructuring SLS contracts. That's what I think it's anticipation of, because you can't run a multi-billion-dollar space program and not launch stuff into space. And I think that potentially could be changing in the near future.
But what kind of restructuring are we talking about here then?
There's what I think, and then what I think is going to happen. There's what I want is to happen. I'll tell you what I want to happen. I want SLS launching 4 times a year, starting in 2026. Don't say it can't be done. All right? Don't say it can't be done. Those are UJ, this never going to happen. You're the same type of people that said they could never get the tiles working on the shuttle. That's bullcrap. If you figure it out, you've got to keep going. You've got to keep iterating on your design. You could get to that point. Michoud is built to scale. It absolutely is. It's big enough. All right? And now that they've kind of spread out the processing operations for core stages, you can have even higher throughput because they're assembling the core stage in High Bay 2 and the VAB. All right? SLS needs to launch 4 times a year. 4 times a year is enough to do a long duration stay on the moon, come back, and by the time you're coming back, you're ready to launch again. Minimal downtime on the moon, get your return on investment on the gateway, which we've invested a lot of money in, and turns out one of the contractors forgot to take into account how much the wiring harness weighs, and then the module became too heavy because they forgot. Yes, that's also in an OIG report. People working on the habitation and logistics outpost forgot to take into account how much the wiring weighs when they were figuring total mass. So now gateway is too heavy. That is dude. It's from an OIG report. Look it up. It's ridiculous.
EJ,
we got to get a return on investment. Hold on a second. Give me 1 second. You got to get a return on investment. Launching this thing 4 times a year. You got to get ML2 up to snuff, right? We got to get this thing going. We got to get this thing needs to get off the ground, figuratively and actually. Are we going to explore the moon? Are we really going to go to Mars in the 2030s? Is that really going to happen? Right? It's not going to happen by sitting here on the ground. Definitely not going to happen. So I don't know. That's my piece. You wanted some spicy policy there. That's what needs to be done.
As someone who enjoys recording rocket launches very much, I think you are 100% correct with this, and I agree with you 100%. I think we should be flying it more. I want to see it fly more. Like, we can't make things more efficient if you're only building... Like, if everything is a one-off, what efficiency are you getting there? You're learning to build it, and then you're like, hey, we know how to build this now. Sorry, we're not doing that again. Like, get more payloads on SLS, fly it more, fly more people to the moon. I really want to see that. I was worried you thought I might be disagreeing with you there, but no, not at all. I absolutely want to see more launches of SLS. I'll say I understand people criticizing the cost. I get it. But I think it's worth it, and it will only get better.
Criticizing the cost compared to what, D? Compared to what? The Saturn V? What are we comparing it to? Our other imaginary rocket that doesn't exist?
The Brighton stack.
Oh, get out of here.
I mean,
sorry.
I think EJ needs a minute here now.
All right, I'll take my thoughts here then, because yeah, we want to launch it more. I mean, obviously, more rockets, more better. We want to see more launches, but keep in mind we're talking people whose mindset is just in dollar figures, not if we launch more, the grand number goes down. What they're looking at is how much are each of those going to cost every single time. Even if 4 or 5 years from now, the money is going to cost less, this current president only has 4 years. What's going to happen after 4 years when a new president comes in? Are they going to go, oh wow, this is still too expensive, or it's not down to the levels that we were promised yet, so get rid of it? That's the concern with that, is with such a high price tag to start, even just saying, oh yes, by flying it more will lower the price, they're not going to want to pay that initial cost that it's going to take to get it down. That's my worry, that's where we're at. And that's kind of the poll right now. Do you restructure SLS or do you just kill it? I think the problem is there's not a good way to sell an SLS restructure. I agree, more launches will help that, but if you're already starting at billions of dollars per flight, especially when you, again, assuming that this is how the government's going to think about it, well, why would we do that when SpaceX is offering it cheaper, or when, Blue Origin's offering payload launches cheaper for the same amount of mass it can carry? They're going to look at it that way from the numbers perspective, and that's what scares me.
Sawyer, I got a question. And D, this is kind of to both of you guys. I have a question. Let's say that SLS did everything that it was supposed to do. It launched in 2017 for Artemis 1. We launched Artemis 2 in 2020. We went back to the moon in 2024. Basically, what I'm trying to get at, let's air conditional hypothetical here that SLS launches on a regular schedule, right? Would anyone care about the price at that point? Would anyone be as critical of this vehicle if it launched all the time? I didn't see anybody whining about the Saturn V's price. You know why? Because it put flags on the surface of the moon. What do you guys think? Do you think anybody would care do you think that anybody would care about the heavy price tag if it was actually doing something?
I think there will inevitably be people who will criticize the price. I mean, there will inevitably be people who criticize anything that isn't SpaceX. There will inevitably be people who criticize anything that isn't their thing. So I think there will be criticism of the price still. But I think it will. There will be a lot more ammunition once you can say, this rocket brought us back to the moon. This rocket will bring us to Mars. And this rocket is why we are going to continue to have people on the moon.
But
I
here's the
think a lot of
difference.
that could decrease. Okay?
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, go ahead.
The difference is, if it's a SpaceX, if it's a, Blue Moon, if it's Starship kind of thing, that's different from SLS, which is entirely funded by taxes. Yes, Starship and all of the landers are getting money from NASA, which is taxpayer money, to help make that happen. SLS, what people see is, wait a minute, that's what my tax dollars are going to when private companies aren't using my money to do it cheaper? Even though NASA's budget is less than half of 1% of the entire federal budget. We're talking 0.4%, not even 1%. People aren't going to see it that way. They're going to see a price tag that has a B in front of it. They're going to see that we're building a second launch tower for the vehicle that still isn't built yet, that also has a B in front of it for the cost, just for the tower. They're going to see that and go, I don't want my money going towards that. You're going to have people saying, oh, there are so many better things we can put that tax dollars to. It's the public perspective on that. I mean, people, yes, we know that's the case, but if you're just Joe Schmo from the public looking in on this, what are they going to think? If you're just a generic politician looking in on this and you see that's what your constituents' tax dollars are going to, what are you going to think? The problem here really is the public perception, the PR around it. We're not selling all these things we're talking about. SpaceX is selling it hard of, we're going to get back to the moon and onto Mars.
Bingo.
NASA isn't even selling the fact that we are the ones that will be launching the people that will land.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. So I agree with you there. And D, that's what I'm talking about. You say people like their own thing. People like SpaceX. You know why people like SpaceX? Because they launch stuff. They launch stuff. Their rockets do things. I mean, sometimes it's explode in a fiery embrace and make a cool, awesome streak across the sky. I mean, hey, and before anybody says, I'm a huge SpaceX fan. I love it. If you can't joke about it, what can you do? You'd be crazy to think that Starship isn't going to do what they think it's going to do. It absolutely will get there. All right. But also, pretty colors, people, there's a reason why people vehemently defend SpaceX, because they launch stuff, because they do things, because there's tangible results. And I see a bunch of people in chat saying, well, EJ, people criticize the Apollo program for the cost eventually, and that's why it got canceled. Yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but at least it did something. What are we going to do? Cancel SLS? You just going to get rid of it? You want to see the VAB? You want to see the VAB get abandoned? Do we want to do that? We really want to do that? You really want to push this button? Right? Like I don't think that's wise. I don't think that's smart at all. That's not a good idea. I don't want to do that. The price, I think, and once again, it goes back to the point that I'm saying. I think SLS is not expensive for what it is. Once again, compared to the Saturn V, if you adjust the cost for inflation, SLS looks like a Falcon 1 in terms of cost compared to the Saturn V. Go check it out. I'm telling you, you'll go look it up. You'll be like, oh, the Saturn V was expensive. Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. I don't think SLS is expensive. I think we think it's expensive because we have nothing to compare it to.
And that's when NASA was getting 4% of the federal budget, not 0.4%.
Exactly.
Too. That's just,
Slightly political take. I think NASA should have the money to bring us to the moon and Mars.
I think they have the money right now to do it.
That's just a crazy take, D. I don't think any of us would agree with you on that.
I mean, you're not wrong, but D, I think the money is there. NASA's budget was like $23 billion. And, even if you want to relegate that to like exploration systems development, right? So just to SLS, like that's still like $9 billion a year or something ridiculous like that. Someone's going to have to fact check me on those numbers. You're telling me you can't do anything with $9 billion a year? Nothing. Now, someone, wait, I heard the door open.
I think we need another opinion here because my ghost is flickering behind me saying we need someone else in here. Is there another voice here?
Yeah, just a counterpoint. I've been following SLS and writing about it since the conception of it, before then, because it was a shuttle transitioning to the vision for space exploration. when Orion was called a CEV, the Crew Exploration Vehicle, and all the history of that. So you become affiliated with the rocket itself because you followed it from conception through to its birth, through to its first launch. The problem is I've seen over these years the amount of money that's been spent on this rocket. And while we don't get into budgets and while we concentrate on the hardware, it's a ridiculous amount of money and it's always overspent. You look at the Mobile Launcher 1, you look at Mobile Launcher 2, they're spending $1 billion on a second mobile launcher because it's slightly taller, the Block 1B. It's silly amounts of money. If this had been the only plan going forward, you'd want it to continue because otherwise you do lose the moon. You do lose leaving low Earth orbit for the first time in decades. But now we do have alternatives. I know Starship is still in test flights. I know we've still got new rockets coming to be online yet. But when you think about it, SLS is not a rocket that takes you to the moon. It's not a rocket that takes you to Mars. It's a taxi that takes you to HLS vehicles built by Blue Origin and SpaceX to then land on the moon. Are we saying we've got no alternatives to get people to HLS vehicles to then go and land on the moon? That's the question I would ask, because it's a single-use rocket. It's become obsolete. And I hate saying that because I love the hardware on SLS. I know the hardware on SLS. I know the RS-25s. I know the SRBs. I know they're reliable. I know they've got decades of history that helps that reliability. But are we past that point now? Has the game changed? Are we in reusable rockets era where we can launch all these rockets, which they need to do? Let's face it, the Starship needs all these refueling missions. Said, oh God, just seeing the horse picture. Are we there now? I'm saying that as someone who likes SLS. Are we really now thinking that we probably are moving to a point now where reorganization is not enough because it's just cost that many billions?
I have 2 points that I think I will go with here. First of all, SLS has now flown and gone in orbit around the moon. Starship hasn't gone into Earth orbit. Why would we preemptively say, let's go all in on Starship? Let's keep going with SLS. If eventually there are better options, at that point, let's go with that. But this having SLS, that is the NASA vehicle versus this private company's vehicle that happens to be carrying NASA astronauts. And my second point, I think the best part of SLS might be the SRB, specifically for Ares 1, and I just wanted to say that and get your take on it.
Well, you know what? Maybe that stung me a little bit. The Constellation program stung me a little bit because that was headed nowhere fast. I remember the memos from Orion saying, stop directly hindering our design process to the Ares 1 team. And I was thinking, well, hang on a minute. All these thoughts about NASA being the best of the best and whatever, I was thinking, this sounds like an absolute clown show. And it was unfortunately the case because the Augustine Commission cancelled it. Now, I'm wondering a few points. There's several branches to this. One, would they turn around? Would Elon and the political class turn around now and say, cancel SLS, stop it now, dead? End of the program, that's it. I can't see how that's even allowed. The second thing is, do they let it go through to the second launch at least? And then you've got that timeline Dee was talking about where you're not preemptively saying that Starship can do the job. I have every faith in Starship working. We've seen how SpaceX work. We know they're not immune to failing this vehicle, to find the faults and find a sweet spot. We've seen that with Falcon 9, especially the landings. But also there's other options as well. I keep going back to the fact that it's only part of the architecture of getting beyond Earth orbit. It's a big, heavy launch vehicle. And it was the only big, heavy launch vehicle when it was proposed. Now we've got options. And
so,
go ahead, Dee.
What's the architecture then without SLS? We have SLS to get us to that lunar orbit, but with Orion, and then we have the landers, whether that's Blue, whether that's Starship. Is that then people launching on Starship, going into orbit, getting refueled while on the ship when there is no emergency escape system, and then go to the moon and land on that ship? Is that the architecture, or what about with Blue Moon? what's the architecture there?
I personally think that we're going to start seeing a drive towards the crewed version of Starship, not just the HLS version, but also the crew launch from ground. I know there's an issue about the launch abort during first stage, but maybe we're all still stuck in shuttle, where we felt the fear of not having a first stage abort option. Well, technically, I know there's people who go, RTLS! And we had an argument on one of our shuttle Sunday videos that while we kept on, myself and Sawyer were quite correctly saying that RTLS was not really a safe abort option, we had people saying, but it was an abort option, so of course they had first stage abort options. Not to get too deep in the weeds, think that especially if SLS is seen as a program that has not got a future, the drive and the money and the ability to do it will be put more into a forefront where we'll start seeing these options arrive. And I do honestly think that as we've seen with the render showing refilling, we'll start seeing that as an option as far as humans being launched to HLS vehicles. I honestly think that'll be a situation we'll see probably within a timeline that'll be faster than SLS. Let's remember, we were talking about 2030 to Mars as a goal. That's something that we're aspiring to. I think we can do it a lot faster. I've seen the NASA documentation for SLS and Orion to Mars. It's 2043, and that was 5 years ago. So what is it now? Are we ever going to get to Mars with just SLS? No. I don't think it's going to happen. The costs alone and the Block 2 SLS requirement is ridiculous. They haven't got the launch pads for it. They haven't got the cadence for it. They were talking about an absolute maximum of 3 SLS launches a year. An absolute maximum. That is their bottleneck. We're past that now with Starship. We can launch many more times. So I hate saying it because I do like SLS, but I think its days are numbered. I really do.
Yeah, but Chris, the exact getting rid of SLS at this point is going to give you the exact same thing that got us SLS in the first place. The reason why we got rid of Constellation was because at the first sign of stuff being hard, it's spoiler alert, this is difficult things to do, right? I know it's weird, right? At the first sign of trouble, right? They pulled the entire thing, and then Congress said, no, you're not doing that, and then we got this. So if we get rid of SLS now, instead of championing it and trying to fix it and trying to refactor the contracts to get it to the point where we eliminate bottlenecks. I mean, it's NASA. You're telling me they can't figure that out? They can figure it out. Of course they can figure it out. If we do the same thing, we're repeating the same mistakes. What are we going to get if we pull the rug out from SLS? That would be ridiculous to do. It's the same reason we got SLS in the first place.
It seems like a case of saying NASA, they know what to do. I go back to the Constellation program. The Augustine Commission absolutely ripped NASA to shreds over what we're talking about now, but with Ares 1, Ares 5. And they said, look, if we'd not stepped in, this would have just continued and it'd been a complete waste. So restructuring needs to be done probably at a different level, not leaving it just to NASA and their contractors, and maybe having some proper oversight on this if they're going to restructure this. I think, yes, they definitely should launch the second SLS because it's pretty much getting stacked as we're talking about it. It's literally in the VAB. So the other question I'd ask you, EJ, is the heat shield in Orion.
I have some wacky ideas about that, but how much time you got?
I want to hear these ideas.
Okay. So a little bit of a primer. Orion's heat shield delaminated on Artemis 1. There were chunks of the heat shield, of the Avcode heat shield that were liberated. Why? Why did this happen? They were getting pressure behind the main surface of the heat shield. So there's the outside ablative part, right? And they were getting pressure inside. Why were they getting pressure inside? They're getting pressure inside because the Avcode was cracking. Very similar. Think Flight 1 with Starship, but, swap out concrete for heat shield, right? Flight 1 dug a big hole in the ground. That is exactly what's happening that's exactly what happened to Orion's heat shield on the way in, coming back during entry, descent, and landing from Artemis 1. The reason why this cracked is because while they are using Avcode, which is the exact same stuff that they used during the Apollo program, they're manufacturing the Avcode in blocks instead of a honeycomb lattice. Right, now, what's the difference? The Apollo heat shield kind of looks like a beehive. It looks like a beehive shape. And inside of these kind of fiberglass hexagons that they have all over the heat shield, they had somebody up there with a caulking gun, and they were injecting Avcoat manually into these honeycombs that were, I don't know, maybe about 13 mil wide, so about a half inch, right? There's thousands of them. NASA, after EFT1, deemed that we can't do that. That's too complicated. So they started manufacturing Avcoat in blocks. And manufacturing it in blocks makes it easier to crack because you don't have the fiberglass honeycomb holding your Avcoat together. Now, what do I think about this, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Orion needs more testing. You are off your rocker if you want to if you're going to put people on the next flight. You are out of your mind. You are out of your freaking mind. When NASA said, the other day, this was like 4 or 5 months ago, like when they moved Artemis 2 out to 2026, right? They said, we'll launch when we're ready. We'll launch when it's safe. It's never going to be safe if you're using that. It's never going to be safe. What are you talking about? The heat shield needs to be redesigned to make sure that that doesn't happen. Heat shield's cracking is no good. That's no good. Orion needs to be tested more, at least to the point where you can get the block Avcoat design figured out. Okay? Now, how would I do that? Here's where the wacky idea comes in. Okay, we need commercial launch services here. D, you mentioned the Bryden stack a little bit earlier. I'm talking that, but with a little bit of a twist to it. Orion needs to get into the low Earth orbit. Send Orion to commercial lunar destinations. Not commercial lunar, commercial low Earth orbit destinations, excuse me. Send Orion to low Earth orbit. Test that heat shield. Send it uncrewed if you have to. Do another EFT1. Now, I understand EFT1 couldn't happen over and over again because in 2014, there wasn't that big of a launch market. We have a completely different landscape today. You have New Glenn, you have Falcon Heavy. There's all these freaking rockets that are ready to go, particularly New Glenn. Like if it was me, I would put Orion on top of New Glenn and have a low Earth orbit regime for it. Basically, I know people are going to hate this, basically taking the place of Ares 1. And that, you do that, well, SLS is getting refactored. So yeah, you refactor the SLS contracts, you change everything out. It's going to take some time to revamp the program. In the meantime, you get these Orion capsules onto New Glenn. You have New Glenn send that thing as far as you can into space and test that heat shield before you put anybody on that thing. The heat shield is cracking, everyone. The heat shield is cracking into pieces. Last time we had that happen, it didn't work very well, okay? You do not want this. The whole program needs to be more hardware rich. Right? And in order to do that, we need to put Orion through its paces. Putting people on the next flight is crazy. You are absolutely nuts to do that. That needs to change.
And yet we're doing it.
No, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, it's also because you say, as you mentioned, it's a NASA rocket. NASA cannot afford another failure. SpaceX can blow up their vehicles left, right, and center when uncrewed. That's fine. Even an uncrewed SLS failure would kill it. NASA can't afford that. It's just the way NASA is now, and rightly so, because they've been stung by 3 tragedies before. They can't have a fourth. It's just politically unstable to do that. I would ask you, EJ, about this example. The RS-25, great engine. They spent over $1 billion in transition and retirement at the end of the Space Shuttle program to Aerojet Rocketdyne to defund their factories, their production lines for RS-25. They then paid them twice as much to restart production for SLS. And they've given them a contract for several more billion for new RS-25Es. We're talking billions just for the engines.
Yep.
Starbase has cost $2.5 billion, apparently, rumour has it, so far, to get to where they are now with the infrastructure and the rockets they've launched. Mm-hmm. Talking about a budget and how much they want to spend on something, you can get a hell of a lot more by going this route. And I think NASA has transitioned quite a lot from its traditional, because it's always been contractors. The Space Shuttle program was Lockheed Martin and Boeing under the United Space Alliance, but now it's mainly Boeing. There's a lot more going on now with NASA on the commercial factors, such as buying services rather than being the stewards of the rocket. I think that's the way NASA's been going. It's worked out very well from various resupply on crew rotations. I just can't see that path continue. I'm going against the grain here. The poll is 66%. Keep it going. And most of the chat is saying, yeah, I agree with you, EJ. So I am going against the grain here, but just from my experience standpoint, I think these days have gone now. I think NASA has made it work where they're a service purchaser rather than a service provider. They let the commercial sector be the commercial provider.
Chris, I appreciate you going against the grain. I also think that is a notoriously bad idea. If NASA's incessant drive to commercially procure everything just because it's cheaper only defunds NASA. That's it. It only defunds NASA. NASA is the only one that gets screwed from that. Now, I understand people are going to say, "Oh, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? Commercial crew has been so successful." Yeah, commercial crew has been so successful because it has a multi-bajillion-dollar space station to go to that we spent a lot of money on, and we spent a lot of money on the launch vehicle. And Chris, you mentioned the engines to get that launch vehicle up there to build that space station. What happens when that's not there? See what I mean? It's only successful if NASA's leading the way. And relegating NASA to somebody that's procuring commercial services basically turns NASA into a regulatory agency at that point. No engineer is going to go work there. No engineer is going to want to work there. Everyone's going to want to work at commercial because that's where the cutting edge is. If NASA's not leading the cutting edge, then we got a big problem here. And I know what people are going to say. It says with this big SLS core on the screen. I get it. That's not cutting edge, right? Yeah, I mean, I would argue that it is. It's sent a human-rated spacecraft further than anything in the commercial market ever. Going back to Dee's point, right? Starship's never gotten a LEO. Now, let's be real. You'd be totally arrogant to think that it's not going to eventually, and I want it to, But also at the same time, if there's nothing for the commercial market to go to, if there's no reason for them to go somewhere to like a moon base or a Mars base, or having Orion transferred to a commercial lander, if you wanted to make that argument, then NASA's going to get relegated to this agency that just is a bunch of bureaucrats procuring services, right? That's not NASA. That's something else.
Yeah,
I don't think
the budget line is not SLS. It's not Orion. It's Artemis. So cancel SLS is not cancelling Artemis. That's what I'm saying. That was a trick that was told to me a long time ago about the budget lines. What if we ended shuttle now? Where would all that money go? It would just not be given as funds to NASA. It never happened because it wasn't a budget line for shuttle. It was a budget line for ISS resupply and ISS assembly, in fact. So they would have to cancel Artemis. They'd have to cancel going to the moon and Mars for that budget line to go away. It's not a budget line for SLS and Orion.
See, I'm confused. What are you saying? Like, you confused me here.
You realign Artemis. You don't realign. You realign Artemis to provide the funds to the other providers. That's how you do it. You don't. What I'm saying is, if you cancel SLS, that money doesn't go back to the government and say, "Well, spend it on something else." Then don't spend it on NASA. It's Artemis they're paying for. That's the budget line. In the actual political budget, it's Artemis. It's not SLS. Artemis just happens to have to spend all its billions on SLS. Artemis could spend it on something else.
You think Congress will let that fly?
I don't know. You tell me.
No, absolutely not. Why would they get rid of their gravy train, Chris?
Is that a great thing to think of then? Is that great?
No,
it sounds
I'm not
like
saying
we're supporting a jobs program. It sounds like we're supporting the gravy train. I mean,
yeah. Well, what's Apollo?
Here?
Arguably the biggest gravy train was Apollo, the thing that also accomplished the most stuff. That was a 400,000 job gravy train. What I'm saying, this is what I mean. If you champion it and you move to a solid architecture that's going to be guaranteed funds for congressional districts over the next 40 years, no congressman is going to vote this down. Why? And yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to leave the budget scattered to the wind with no scheduling milestones and leave NASA up to procuring whatever they want, like if you want to do that, that's fine and dandy. I mean, Congress is already basically conjoined at the hip with the Artemis program. I don't think that's going to fly too well.
Oof.
See, we got ourselves a right fine puzzle, dude. I've thought about this many times. Like this is what like keeps me up at night, right? The best thing I can think of is working with the system. You work with the system that's in place because that's what works. That's what worked 50 years ago. And I know people are going to say like, oh, well, that requires a huge budget increase. Okay, so one, you don't want NASA's budget increased. Okay, sure. Two, it's not going to cost nearly as much because all the facilities that carry. One of the reasons why Apollo carried a heavy price tag is because they had to build everything. We don't have to do that this time around. We already have a VAB. We already have a launch pad. We don't have a mobile launcher, but yeah, okay. If you want to criticize that, you can do that. That's fair, right? Like, see what I'm saying? I mean, it's a good conversation, Chris, right? But I really don't think it'll play out like that, dude. If they pull the rug out from under it, you can be dang sure that Congress is gonna be like, no. You know why?
Yeah, I just think it's disappointing because it's from the outside looking in, it sounds like almost people want the gravy train to continue. I don't understand. That'd be a riot server over this. It's almost like, oh no, let's keep it going. I mean, if they're going to restructure it, why wait till 2025? They could have restructured this years ago.
I will say, if I can hop in here super quick, I think the ML2 discussion and the mismanagement there and its bloating cost, it's like, I think it's near $3 billion.
Read the GOA reports. I mean, come on.
It was supposed to be, 300 million? And they're at 10 times the cost. There have been issues with sourcing and it's behind schedule. And that definitely is a problem. That needed to be handled way differently. That should be done by now. Why are we still watching them build this? Why are we still giving them money?
But the seat is on.
Because it's good for congressional districts and it's good for the gravy train. Let's continue. That's what we're saying. I'm sorry, it is. That is what we're saying.
I am in favor of... what was I going to finish my sentence there?
Sorry, go on, Dave.
No. I don't know how I was going to finish it. Obviously, I don't like cost-plus contracts for most things. There are very select things where they might make sense. But I think we do need to look back at a lot of the specific assets here and improve the pad, improve the mobile launcher, make that go faster. But I don't think getting rid of SLS is the move. And I am biased. I do want to be there, get video of it, launching all the time. Like, we've only seen SLS launch at night. That's not cool. We need some daytime launches here. That's the selfish side of me. But realistically, I don't think right away, like until we have another architecture, for sure we are going with. Why would we cut back SLS specifically?
I think you need another voice in this conversation.
All right,
you really don't. But is SLS going to do the job? Is SLS and Orion going to do the mission that we're spending billions of dollars to accomplish? That's the one question neither side has actually answered so far in this conversation.
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
So, in my ideal scenario of refactoring SLS, you rebaseline it with, okay, this is going to get real spicy. I know people are going to call me nuts for doing this. All right. Remember how I said, New Glenn basically becomes your Ares 1, right? Right? I would refactor SLS to use Glenn Stage 2 as your upper stage. Get rid of Block 1B. Get rid of the ICPS. Those programs are going nowhere. I mean, the ICPS actually isn't going nowhere. You can't buy any more of those. ULA stopped making those a long time ago, right? The exploration upper stage has been funded to the tune of $300 million for the last 14 years and has done nothing. They have their past critical design review and are working on fabricating up some test articles now after 14 years. Okay. Put Glenn Stage 2 up there.
EJ, this is what I would have done.
Yes, sir.
I'd have gone Constellation program, go straight to Ares 5, right? Because that's almost like SLS. That would have been great from the start. Ares 1 was the problem with Constellation program. With SLS, I'd gone Block 1B from the start.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Block 1B is what SLS should have been. I completely agree with you on that one. It's just, and that's what I'm saying. SLS is a fragmented architecture. It needs to be refactored. The sooner we get this done, the sooner that $93 billion total that, and you can quote me on that one. That one's from an OIG report. That $93 billion that we've spent on this thing for the last 11 years actually gets put to work. Guys, I'm telling you, like, I know people are looking at me crazy. I get it. You do not cancel stuff that works. Full stop. Full stop. And people saying, well, EJ, sunk cost fallacy. Yeah, okay, all right. The last time, what happened the last time we canceled something that worked? That thing called the Saturn V. Oh yeah, don't worry. The space shuttle will save us money. It'll save us money, and we'll be back on the moon in the 80s. Oops.
Don't worry, EJ, I look at you crazy all the time anyway.
Yeah, I mean, tell me something I don't know. That's why I said it, you know. Vaquero sunk cost fallacy. No, you didn't, man. You got to do me like that? Come on. No, it's like every time someone says this, it never works, man. It never works. We got to build this thing out. Build it out. Get it working. Right? Like, if people looking at this the wrong way, if they refactor it, instead of pulling the rug out on it and work with what you got here, just like Jim Bridenstine did before, by choosing to integrate SLS horizontally, put the core stage together horizontally instead of vertically, which would have, our Artemis 1 still wouldn't have launched. You work with what you got and you refactor what you got, and you can actually get stuff done. Right? And then, if the thing works, that's great. Now we have 2 super heavy launch vehicles. You know what my dad told me one time? The only thing better than 1 super heavy launch vehicle is 2. You know what's better than
yeah.
You know what's better than 2, Sawyer?
What?
3.
You know what's better than 3?
8.
People using the love trench to get 15% off shop.nasasspaceflight.com, and a bunch of you have been taking advantage of that. And I want to thank some people for doing so.
I'm so done.
Smooth.
Dude, I totally lost my train of thought, man. You gotta be kidding.
You're welcome. Let's see. We had the Space Pope, getting an L2 lifetime membership. L2 is our awesome forums with some cool behind-the-scenes photos. You've got unique documents and pictures that are exclusive that you'll only see there. That's awesome. If you want to join L2, just make sure you already have one of the free memberships to the forum and use that username when you get your L2. So enjoy that very much, the Space Pope, who also has just been crazy generous anyway with gifting. Oh, there you go. With gifting 50 memberships here, 50 Red Team memberships from the Space Pope. So if you got one of those, please definitely thank the Space Pope. Alex Bond with the super chat. Any idea when the next Falcon Heavy launch is? I believe the next one currently scheduled is the Griffin lander, which is towards the end of the year.
Yeah, baby.
Mats, thank you for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Sorry, Mike Alpha Tango Sierra now. Anonymous getting the Flight 7 patch, saying that's their donation to NSF. Thank you. We appreciate that. And hopefully you appreciate the patch. That's the best part about the store. Not only do you support us, but you get to show something for it. Dougal, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Chromatic Order, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. Rupen getting a print saying, "Hail the Trench and the Trenchies. Happy Valentine's Day." Well, thank you. Space Pope with a $20 super chat saying, "Pizza for Jack." There you go, Jack. There's your pizza party. Telstar was also asking, getting a blessing from the Space Pope for this love trench. Oh, we got the blessing. We got plenty of blessing. Danielle getting the calendar saying, "Thank you for the love trench code." You're very welcome. Thank Adrian for that. John James, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Julian, the flame trench is on fire tonight. That is true, and it's very appropriate pun getting the re-entry club merch. I think D likes that merch too, given that's the shirt they're wearing right now too. There it is. There's the re-entry club. And Jack Schulten talking about Starship, which is perfect because we are ready to transition over to the crazy long static fire that we had of the ship. 1 minute, baby! EJ? Yeah, that's the good stuff.
Wait a minute. Can you hear me?
Hang on. Let's get EJ back here. He's talking to himself, which is normal, but normally you like to hear it too.
I mean, I get paid to sit in a room and talk to a wall all day anyway. Anyway, so sorry about that. I was typing in the back channel. That's why I was like, huh? You know? So, okay. Ship 34 did a full duration static fire. This is actually super cool. SpaceX never done a static fire this long. I think I have a good idea why they did this long. Just saying, might have to do with the past mission. But it was really awesome to see Ship 34 down at Massey's just light up the sky. It was a 60-second burn. Actually, it was 60 second and change. It was close to a full minute, right? But this thing wailed on that test stand for like almost a minute, and it was wild to see. SpaceX, of course, gave us the goods. They gave us some really good footage, right? 1 minute of EJ silence. I know that's what you want. Don't lie. No, it's great footage, but I think, once again, like, clearly something went wrong with Ship 33. And we saw, Elon said on X that it was the Everything app, that it was some type of fuel leak. Now, I might be reading into this a little too much here, but it looks like after they shut the engines off, there's a little bit of spiciness coming out down the bottom. Now, don't get me wrong. And we know this from Falcon 9. When rockets land, there's usually some residual propellants that do get, kind of burped out. There's residual propellants left in the plumbing when they shut the valves, and that does leak out, and it can cause a fire in some points. Now, whether that's what's going on here or whether it, is another fuel leak, we don't know. Either way, this thing roared for a minute straight, and it was awesome. It was fantastic. Like I said, fuel leaks or not, Starship's a beast, dude. I saw that thing for Flight 7, and it is out of this world. It ruined other rockets for me completely. Adrian, it's fun watching your mouth opening and closing but not hearing anything. We can make up what you're saying. Well, I need gopher chucks. Anyway,
Okay,
so
but yeah, I mean, I guess my question for all of this is why? Why do a full minute-long burn? Most of these, obviously they do a static fire all of these before they launch, but we're talking 10, 15 seconds, maybe a little longer. Any idea why they might have gone for the whole minute? What do you think? I'll throw it EJ and D unless you want to jump in with an idea.
D, I just said what I thought. D, you say it.
Oh, okay. They already have the individual Raptor firings. It's always good to get a better idea of like how everything's changed. The thing that they don't have as much of on this instance, they don't have the data from the ship on last flight flying for a longer period of time. So it makes sense to get more data. I mean, more data, more better. More rockets, more better. So if they can run the static fire for longer, perhaps work out any issues that may exist, whether it's in plumbing, in the engines, in vibrations, who knows? More data, more better.
But yeah, that is true. And for those who don't know, I mean, do we even know exactly what these changes or upgrades are that we're supposedly seeing tested?
Well, SpaceX had a blog post a little while back about all the different upgrades that they've done to these Block 2 ships, and one of them, Sawyer, is the plumbing. They have I believe they said they have vacuum insulated oh gosh, I'm gonna call it the wrong thing, and Jack somewhere is gonna be like, me, like the thing in which they take the methane fuel down to the engines with. Never end a sentence in a preposition. No,
fine. I'll say downcomer then. It's fine.
All right. Jack just twitched a little bit. I felt it.
He might come back. Don't.
Yeah, right.
Fine. Transfer tube. Okay.
Yeah. Ryan, thank you in the back channel. Vacuum jacketed transfer tubes, right? I sorry, man. I just call it downcomer or just fuel line, whatever. Right. So we know that there are plumbing upgrades, and I might be connecting dots that aren't there, but Elon says there's a fuel leak, right? Ship 33 catastrophically explodes, whether it was FTS or not, the fuel leak is what caused it, right? And then all of a sudden, the next ship, which is the same exact version we just see, with a longer duration test, I don't think that's a coincidence. Now, I would ask the question, why didn't you do this before? Like, why didn't you do this with Ship 33? You know, it's new plumbing. And they did static fire Ship 33, but they didn't do it for long. It was just kind of I think, well, you know, somewhere Alex is going, I know how long it was. Alex, back channel me. How long was it? How long was 33 compared to 34? It was, I mean, it's a significant difference either way, right? So I think this full duration burn was for a very good reason. They're trying to eliminate failure modes from that plumbing because, yeah, there's something they didn't realize, and that's why we lost 33.
The back channel is typing. I see both Alex and Ryan Weber going.
Several people are typing.
You got the Starship people working on that, yeah.
The omniscient sources of information.
There's your answer, AJ. About 10 seconds or
10
less.
seconds, yep. Yeah, or it's free, right?
Dang, then we all get free pizza party, baby.
Oh, no, that's not a good throw. I don't like that throwback. I don't like that throwback. Oh, God.
That was good. I like that one. That was good. That was good.
Thank you. I had that one in the downcomer waiting.
What were we talking? Oh yeah, Ship 34. I think they went for a longer duration bird because they really want to put that plumbing, the new plumbing, and all the changes to Block 2 to the test. That was pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty fun.
I'm pretty proud of myself for that one, actually.
You were ready with it. You were very ready.
Dude, you had that teed up.
That was just off the top of my head, though. It wasn't like I had that planned. It was just all of a sudden when you said 10 seconds, I'm like, oh, like 30 minutes or less. A pizza. Oh.
I set you up with the layup, dude. Set you up. Sawyer with the assist. Or no, EJ with the assist. Sawyer with the goal. Woo! Oh. Sorry.
So, I guess the real, speaking of goal, then, is what do we think this means timeline-wise? When do we think we'll finally get this next Starship flight? And I know, obviously, part of that is dealing with all of the regulations and this and that, but when do we think we'll get Flight 8 at this point? And when do you think all of the vehicles will be SpaceX approved, so to speak, for that? Dee, what do you think?
Okay, so I think I've said this on a previous stream at one point or another. I don't think this month. I think it'll be next month. Just realistically, I think that is when they will be ready and when SpaceX will have their full understanding, enough so to go for another launch attempt. Of course, there's also like the investigation, the public safety. Like in this case, will there be a finding of no public safety for the FAA investigation? That means even before it's totally complete, they can get back to flying. Or will there be a finding that perhaps there was a public safety risk, and then it's until the full investigation is done that they can fly again? We will have to wait and see, but my guess, and it is a guess, would be absolutely no earlier than next month.
EJ? Okay, Minecraft Villager, what do you say?
No, sorry. No, I was that dude. I started doing that as a joke, and that actually is the sound that I make when I'm thinking about things now, because I started doing it as a joke, and people found it funny on stream, and now I just do it, and I'm not happy about it. So sorry in advance. If it's not in 2 weeks, it's definitely going to be in March. I mean, I saw somebody say in chat, Pi Day. Let's go. I'm in. Let's do that. That very much seems like what's going on. But the point is that it's on the horizon here. Like, you know, there was some spiciness under 34 after its static fire. SpaceX is going to probably have to figure out what that was, you know. And as long as it's known behavior, you know, let's get going. Let's get this thing in a pipe. Like the booster static fire, ship static fire now, that's trending towards a launch, right? The happening level is trending towards its. You know what I mean? So it's going to be sooner rather than later. I don't know. Pi Day is a good call. I do like that. But all right, I'll be that guy here. I'll be that guy and say the end of this month. I'll be that guy. I'll do it.
Ready to fight?
That guy,
Yeah.
wow, that's a bold claim.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll say
I was going to be the uber pessimist and go end of March, potentially early April, and I
What?
don't think all of that is going to be on SpaceX.
Sawyer,
That's the thing.
I 100% agree with you. I'm sort of hedging my bets by saying no earlier than next month a little bit. But no, I'm totally with you. My vote would be for later rather than sooner.
Yeah, and again, like I was saying, I don't think that much of that is on SpaceX. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of the things that they tested on this static fire that we just saw for Flight 8 is going to maybe make some changes that they need to do to the vehicle, some tweaks and things like that. We also saw the Booster 15 static fire, and that's already rolled back. I'm sure they're doing small tweaks after that. So, I mean, if we were talking just vehicle readiness, I still think it would probably be first week of March, the earliest. But given there's so much more that needs to be factored into all of this, especially after what happened with Flight 7, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up at the end of the month or early April.
dang, man. You think the mishap's going to take that long? I think SpaceX, like Sawyer, okay, so just some food for thought. I don't think SpaceX would have put Ship 34 on at Massey's and sent it if they didn't know what happened to Ship 33, right? If they didn't have the fault tree traced completely on the Ship 33 mishap, why test Ship 34? If you don't know what the problem is, testing it and figuring out that's not going to help you. That's not going to help you potentially mitigate the problem, right? Now, obviously, Ship 34 didn't explode, right? So there is some forward progress there, right? Like, I think that SpaceX already knows what's wrong, and it's just, as weird as this is going to sound coming from me, Mr. Defend the System over here, I think it's just, FAA coming to the same conclusion and getting all the T's crossed and I's dotted, and then we'll go for the next one. SpaceX wouldn't be testing if they didn't know what the problem was. I mean, that's just blatantly wasting money.
But here's the thing. I think part of what they did, if I had to guess, this is speculation, part of what they were doing with that minute-long static fire was testing some of their conclusions on it, of maybe fixes that they made or changes that they made to prevent the leakage. If that's the case, they still then have to write that into their paperwork. They then have to present, they have their list of planned changes that they then have to give to the FAA. The FAA doesn't tell them what to fix. The FAA just says, come back to us with your results of the mishap investigation, and if all of the, I's are dotted and T's are crossed, then we'll sign off on it and you can fly again. This is all up to SpaceX now to write that up, and I think they're still gathering that data, and this was kind of their confirmation test of, this is what we did to fix it and this worked, or it didn't, and something in that is then going to have to be added into that final stuff that they file with the FAA.
Can I jump in here real quick?
Oh crap, he's here. Run!
Oh my gosh, is that an Alejandro Alcantara Romero?
Yeah, hi. So I wanted to be a bit of a sort of like the critical voice here in the room, I guess, even though you cannot see me because I'm not on camera. But do we really think this test fully tests the conditions of this flight? Think about it. The failure on Ship 33 was 5 minutes into its burn. So it hot staged around 2:35. You can see that in about 20 seconds, I guess, because we're replaying that launch. And the first engine went out around 7:40 or something like that into flight. So that was about 5 minutes into the second stage burn, into that ship burn. So do we think that single minute firing, does it really test the conditions at which that failure happened? Furthermore, that condition happened in vacuum, right? Like the expansion, for example, of the exhaust was different. Like you had a whole lot different conditions on that engine section than here on Earth at sea level. And so do we think it's going to work just because they fired it 1 minute? Because that's my main question. I don't think they're out of the clear here with that test. The real test, of course, will be on during flight. But I want to be sort of like the devil's advocate here, saying that does it really fully test those conditions, right? I'm more interested about the other part that they said on their tweet, where they said about, cycling different thrust levels and, based on this data, adjusting the flight profile, right? We still think it's going to be suborbital. We don't think it's going to be orbital or anything with that naming. But it could be like, it reaches a bit of a higher apogee, maybe it rolls down a little bit more, right? Like those kind of changes that you could expect in terms of the changes. So that's my question. Do we think this was enough to say, okay, let's go, let's do it, and it's going to work?
I don't think they would have tested it this way if they didn't think it was adequate. I mean, I get it. SpaceX has had their kind of whoops moments in the past, but, you don't have an oops moment after an oops moment, right? Like, they put it on there, and they put it on there for a minute for a very, very good reason. Like, why a minute? Why not 2, right? It's there for a very, very good reason. It's there because they have a good idea what failed, and they figured out that putting it there for a minute would introduce it to similar conditions that encountered on Ship 33 from the telemetry, right? From the telemetry that was from the flight before the thing became a double rainbow across the sky, right? Alex, I think they wouldn't have tested it that way if they weren't sure. I mean, you got to give them some credit, right? Like they wouldn't have done that, and like if they didn't think that was the right prescription for this, I guess, right? Sawyer, what do you think?
I mean, I think if they could test the whole vehicle's propulsion, they would have at that point. I think one of the restrictions I've seen a couple of people mention, including Ryan in the back channel.
I guess I'm the black horse now.
Your hair is identical, that's why.
It's probably as long.
It's because the fact that you've got the the love trench there. It can't take much more than a minute, can it? I feel like the best they can do is simulate the conditions as best as possible. So, changing the thrust up, changing little bits of it, get all that testing in within that 1 minute that they have before they start destroying the ground and potentially the vehicle. I mean, I think that what they're testing here has to be, in my opinion, related to what happened. There had to have been some change, some tweak, something that they realized, okay, you know what? We can fire this at least for a minute. Maybe if it's leak levels, measuring those leak levels over the course of a minute, see how the rate is and measure that rate and say, okay, if this is how it was over a minute, this is what we can expect for the full duration burn and make changes from there.
Yeah. One other thing that I will come back to here is that, at least from the outside, I don't know if you guys remember when Elon talked about, creating more vent space for the leaks to be able to have a way of venting out and everything. And so one of the things that we do see, for example, here with the booster landing, right, is that they do have a fire suppression system that is very efficient, and then they have vents, and so there's like a false ceiling, right, in between the shielding and the dome on the aft section of the booster and also on the ship. And so on the booster, they have this fire suppression system. It lets out, there's like 18 vents on the perimeter. It lets out all of those gases that are trapped there. They flush CO2 in there. So it's a very good way of being able to get rid of any potential fires, leaks, and whatnot. The ship, for Block 2, they used to have on Block 1 like a row of vents, little squares on the outside that gave way for whatever thing that was going on inside to be able to vent out. For Block 2, they reduced that amount of vents. Ship 34 went out to Massey's, and we thought they might, they could, in theory, put those upgrades that Elon talked about, increasing the vent size and whatnot. We did not see that. So that's, for example, one of the things that I'm a bit skeptical about. Like, if they really need more venting and more fire suppression, like, did we really see that in action here? I think it's probably going another route here in terms of what kind of fixes they put in place, right? As EJ was mentioning, probably in the plumbing and things like that. Probably heading towards that. Another thing, the second thing that I wanted to bring up here, they did this 1 minute burn on purpose, in the sense that Masses was not set up for this. Just a few months ago, Masses was not set up for this kind of test, but they upgraded the test site to be able to do 1 minute long burns, I think even before Flight 7 happened. So, this is another question that I know Jack has been trying to, put in chat multiple times.
Yeah, you're not hosting, Jack, I am.
Which is, what if this 1 minute burn is the norm going forward? And it just so happens that Ship 34 is also the first ship to be able to be tested during, for 1 minute because Masses has been upgraded for this. Putting it out there.
I think that's a good point, dude. I think, like I said, it could be the norm from now on because of this RUD, dude. But also that's not a bad. That's a good point. But I also want to disagree with Jack, so I'm going to say it's because of the RUD.
Oh, ding ding.
So, fight
there
me,
you
bro.
Go. Jack can't defend himself, so kilt it is.
Anyway, I'll leave you all alone,
guys.
And I
want to go wear this
anymore.
now. Oh, jeez.
But I just wanted to bring up those interesting thoughts that I think, are like they are all in my brain. Like I have your questions, right, of positivity and everything, of being like, oh, this will work and whatever. But I also have my other part of myself, you know what I mean, right? That little voice that says, what if it doesn't work? So I wanted to bring up that voice, that little voice of, what if it doesn't work?
How many Alexes we got in this stream anyhow?
Yeah, this is, I don't know what this says about NSF, but a lot of people are not very busy on Valentine's Day tonight. All coming in here to chat.
I liked it. This is great. I like the roundabout of special guests. This is fantastic. It's like we're on Between Two Ferns.
Okay, who's Zach then?
I got the beard. Just saying.
But yeah, I guess
Sorry,
that works now with the title where it actually says "Welcome to the Lonely Souls" version.
Paging me.
Anyway, in terms of actual questions here's an interesting one. This kind of ties into both the conversations that we've been having, and a shocker that I'm going to throw this one to EJ just based on the question. Josh is asking, where do you think the Starship program would be if shuttle was never a thing, or if shuttle was still flying? I know it's a deep question, but I have to throw it to my shuttle guy, EJ, first.
If the shuttle was still flying, Starship would be doing the same stuff. I don't think it'd be any different. But here's the thing. That's kind of a wrong. It is a trick question. Part of the reason why SpaceX exists is because there was no way to... Elon went looking to try and send a greenhouse to Mars, and he was like, why can't anyone do this? Come on. And then he said, all right, fine, I'll do it myself, whatever. Right? So, and high cost of launch is, the shuttle's kind of part of the reason why that's a thing, right? So it's kind of interesting. I don't think the Starship program would exist if the shuttle didn't. We'd probably have something completely different, probably maybe something better at this point. We're just getting back to the point where we have cool big honking rockets that go further than low Earth orbit, since 50 years ago. We just got back to that point, right? Can you imagine what we had now if we kept going with the Saturn V? Dude, we'd have the Starship Enterprise, man. It'd be great.
Different Enterprise than the one on the Intrepid.
Yeah, exactly. D, what do you think? You think Starship would be a thing if the shuttle didn't exist?
No. Sorry, wait. Just hold on. What was the wording of that question? If it was still flying or if it didn't exist?
Well, there was two. I answered one and then I answered the other. So pick one.
Here's my point. I think if shuttle continued flying, there is no way that SpaceX would be where they are. Because commercial crew program was a huge thing. It took 10 years to get to that point. And okay, now it's in the last few that we're going bigger. We're going fully reusable, all of this. But if the shuttle wasn't flying, where would the commercial crew program have been? Maybe they would have just decided, hey, we don't need 2 systems. Maybe we'll just go with Boeing.
Oh,
It's an interesting point,
Like-
and I kind of shuddered at it. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, yeah, I guess part of it is the fact that these companies rely on NASA funding for at least getting off the ground in terms of jump-starting it, like with commercial crew, commercial cargo, with COTS. I think if Shuttle was still flying, most of the money would be going to Shuttle instead, and these smaller companies that rely on that NASA funding would not get the funding that they've needed to progress Falcon 9 to where it is today, to be able to have the money to develop an HLS version of Starship. So I think that would get rid of a lot of vehicles, because if they want to launch crew, we have Shuttle. They want to launch cargo, we have Shuttle. So
wait, when we're talking about Shuttle, are we talking about like the Shuttle working as intended, or just a continuation of the Shuttle program that we got? Like what?
That's
like
a whole nother can of worms there.
Right? Like what are we talking about
either.
here? If we're talking about a shuttle that works like completely, oh, give me the shuttle, please. Yeah, I'll take that.
To bring up, Ryan brought this up in the back channel, we also have to talk about the commercial crew program. Like, where would that be? And there's so much that would NASA have decided to go out to these commercial partners as much as they have if they were still flying shuttle? They could bring... They could be servicing Hubble. There wouldn't be a discussion about the future of Hubble in nearly the same way if we still had Shuttle.
So many if-onlys. But we'll keep an eye on Shuttle. Of course, you can follow Starship 24/7 on our Starbase live coverage. And we post all about the happenings on all of our social media channels. So if you're not following us on the socials, you know the drill. All the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the X, the everything apps. You know it. You love it. We are on all of them. So make sure you follow those so you get all of the latest happenings, not only just at Starbase, but everywhere too. I do want to thank a couple more people. John M. saying, Sawyer, you're making me miss home. Hashtag NJ Transit train in the background. I used to live right next to an NJ Transit track back in the day. This is Brightline. You're welcome. Jeff Rowe, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Tommy D saying, the Love Trench, exciting and new. Saving copyrights and stuff. And then Tommy D, if you say downcomer 3 times in a Scottish voice, will Jack show up in a kilt? We need Jay to help test that out.
Aye, we're going to get Jay Keegan up in here. He's going to help us get Jack into a kilt.
No, I think Jack can handle that himself.
Oh, jeez. Well, if we can't get Jay in here, hopefully we can get you to stay for This Week in Spaceflight, which is coming up right here next on NSF. So, in case you got tired of all of our shenanigans and our rants, you want actual space news, Alicia's got you covered coming up in just a couple of minutes. So stay here. It should auto-direct you. If not, you can go over to it and check it out, because that premiere will start momentarily. But I do want to thank everyone who joined us on this episode.
Tube!
Downcomer!
Downcomer! Downcomer! Downcomer! Oh!
That's too far.
I'm so
That's
mad.
too far, EJ. We're all here on Valentine's Day. I think you took it too far.
Yeah, and again, says the man who's married, EJ. Making fun of all of us singles here. See, I shake my head at disapproval at you. Who is muted? We can't even hear the burn. That's the worst part.
I told you. I don't have a girlfriend,
by the way. So that's what you're missing.
That's all
Rich,
right.
EJ, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. I was. Now I'm not. It's a shame.
Thank you for joining as well in our fantastic love trench.
Why did you have to call it that? Come on, I was ready to give it. Oh, it's always fun. Why did you have to do that?
Because we all hate it so much.
Okay, I'm bye.
But what we do love is we love all of our members, in particular our highest levels of support, launch directors, flight engineers. It's amazing how much that list continues to grow. I still can't believe how many of you there are. Thank you all for the generous support on that. And again, don't forget, if you want to show support, but you want to be cheap about it, you can check out shop.nasaspaceflight.com. I mean that in a good way, and use the code TheLoveTrench, which is valid until end of day tomorrow. So get it while you can. Thank you, Kevin Michael Reed, for pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and making. Oh, come on, that was a pretty smooth transition, minus the transition over to you, Kevin. But I think Kevin Michael Reed needs some sleep. And I think we should give him that sleep. And I think you guys deserve actual news as opposed to whatever the heck the Love Trench is. So we will send you over to This Week in Spaceflight, coming up next here on NSF. I'm Sawyer Rodenstein. We'll see you later for Twists and Starlink.
Yeah, Starlink later tonight. Don't forget.
Yeah. Starlink launch tonight. Notification bell. You'll know what's happening.
Be there, be square.
Yeah.
Great views.
Yes, D and I will both be there.
And here we go.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, Atlantis.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside ST off. Say again, ST off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.